I definitely don't. I'm not from that school.
Yeah, I know. I just, like I said, I'm not. I just, because we do live in an ignorant society at times, and they'll just see the title and just see from the lines, be like, oh, maybe he's talking about this. I know that, but I just, we just live in that world where some of these songs, you'll be like, you
Right.
know, you hear rappers rap over and over again. I want to die. I'm gonna die, and it's like,
Right.
and you constantly. You said earlier, words have power, so you're constantly speaking that thing over yourself. What do you think you're gonna start thinking? You know what I mean? It's just something to.
Exactly. Well, I just feel like as a young adult or a young kid that's, idolizing these artists, it's such a huge responsibility. And, like I said, and I love hip hop. I mean, I grew up listening to all styles of music. I grew up in a house, thankfully, that, encouraged me to listen to different styles of music.
What's up, y'all? So, look, let me just go ahead and keep it short with you. Did you know that as of 2024, the United States has a literacy problem? 21% of adults cannot read, and 54% of them have been recorded and it has been documented read below a sixth grade level. That is a catastrophe. But that's where I step in. Now, I'm not going to teach the grown folks how to read and write. However, P.S.A, the ghostwriting solution, has now a new package. It's called the Literacy Liftoff, and it caters to 9th through 12th graders who struggle with reading, writing, and comprehension. This new tutoring service will offer vocabulary skills, teaching students how to literally write from the bottom, literally teaching them how to do an introduction paragraph, how to do a hook, how to do a conclusion, how to add a little razzle dazzle, and how to add their own personal touch to it. Okay. Now, you know what you're saying. Well, that's what they go to school for? Absolutely. But as an ex-teacher, the teachers just don't have time. So this program has 3 different packages from 3 different sets of hours that you can take. So if you're an AP, a principal, the student who needs help, the parent of the student, or you just know somebody who needs the help. If you're in the Houston area, you can get in-person tutorials. But if you are not in Houston, there are also virtual options offered as well. So hit me up at my email, theprodigyperspective@gmail.com, and or psathepodcast.com, and we will hook you up. What's up, everybody? All right, y'all. So we are back. Can you believe it? Yes, you can believe it. Of course you can. We've been on the money this whole season. This is actually the first season where I haven't had to try to record something on the drop of a hat. Like, if I do, it's because I want to and not because I have to. You know what I mean? So yeah, good stuff. Last week's episode was great. This one is an unintentional follow up to that a little bit, because last week we talked, shout out to Brady, we talked a lot about community. And this week we talking about a little bit like isolation and kind of thing, and talking a little bit about lying to yourself, all that good stuff. But before we get into that, of course, as always, I got to get into this week's meme. All right. And I have a rant about this as well. So the meme reads, God can't bless you when you keep lying. Inspiration comes from a few things. People who cheat on their taxes. I know a lot of times where we live in a world where, you think you hide your taxes or like withhold information about certain things with money. But we're kind of seeing this is a year of exposure. And I would hate for y'all to keep doing that and then you're going to get caught. Like, if you did it one time and you might have stopped, I might let you slide. But y'all keep doing it. It's just like, this cheating on your taxes, the scamming, like, we got to do better. We got to do better. John 15, 18 and 19, it says, Jesus tells his disciples, if the world hates you, keep in mind they hated me first. If you belong to the world, it will love you as its own, as it is. You do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of this world. This is a verse that I think really aligns with people of this podcast and just outcasts and outliers in general, that a lot of us don't realize we weren't ever meant to fit in, even though we've struggled with it and we wanted to. And we're going to go more in depth about that today too. But just keep that in mind. And then a quote, actually interesting. by Coco Chanel. It says, in order to be irreplaceable, one must always be different. So my goal is to make sure that you all keep that difference about you. And if you are actually different, you don't have to tell people you are. They kind of just see it. Okay. So keep that in mind too. All right. So now let's first jump into today's first topic, which is happy hour. So for today's happy hour, I got to talk about a few things. But the first thing I want to talk about is just people that lie. I am not a I'm not fond of liars. Has anybody lied to me recently? I don't know. They might. I'm not going to necessarily investigate because it always comes out. But I'm just really big on, if you want to see success, you have to be yourself. What do you mean by that? So, you know how some people get into industries and they get into different fields that they really don't want to do because they lying to themselves? Have you ever met a person who, you see those Disney movies where people are being those in like I went to go be a lawyer. Well, my parents said I'd be a good lawyer. Did you want to be a lawyer? Not really. Okay, then you lied to yourself. Sometimes lying to yourself is not always about, sometimes you lie to yourself about some of your friendships. You don't like them people. It ain't even hit you yet. You got to just sit and think about it. Do you like that person? Every time you're around them, you get irritated. Every time y'all around them, each other, y'all argue. Every time you feel like they're trying to pick fights and arguments with you. Them people don't like you. Let this free you today. If you was trying to figure out if they like you or not, hold that up to the light. Do them people like you? No. And they've shown you they don't like you. Anytime y'all in a group setting, they try to throw up something that you did wrong, or they try to say where you went wrong, or they try to bring up how you missed the mark here. I'm not your friends. I saw a post today, a TikTok. The girl said she was playing. But it was a TikTok about this girl at a wedding, in a wedding shop, I guess, getting her sister's wedding dress. And she made a TikTok POV, and it says, when you're the prettier, funnier one, but your sister's getting married first. Where in your mind did you think that was okay to say on the internet? And the fact that when everybody saw it, everybody was tearing you up because why did you think that was okay to say? Because I'm a firm believer, being from where I'm from, like, you can make jokes and y'all just joking, but certain things is like, what, there's something behind it. I don't believe every joke is the truth, because I didn't argue with somebody and say that's why your breath stink. Your breath didn't stink, but I was just saying it because we're joking around, right? But that one is kind of like, what you mean by that? That's something you need to watch. Anybody you got around like that in this season, cut them off. Family, friends, whoever. Anybody that tries to talk you out another topic, talk you out of your destiny, talk you out of your purpose. If you got a song in you, if you got a podcast in you, if you got a movie in you, and they like, well, nah, you can't do that. Nah, that ain't good enough for you. Not good enough for you. You probably couldn't do that. You wouldn't be successful in that. How they know? Think about the biggest critic you know. Think about their talent level. I guarantee you they don't match. As a creator myself, I've dealt with people try to talk me out of things or tell me what I can and can't do. This podcast being one of them, and look at us now. So keep that in mind the next time you have a conversation with somebody. But as I always say too, keep stuff to yourself. Everything don't have to be for everybody. Okay? Move in silence. Don't just say you moving in silence. Actually do it. And to end off with me talking about liars, how I want to end this off. A liar always get caught. That's how I'm just letting off there. Something simple. A liar always get caught. And oh no, real quick. And then when we talk about a liar, it was this person on the news who lied about having an STD and then was giving it to people. This is kind of off topic, but watch who y'all laying down with. Y'all hooking up with people at bars, and obviously many of us have done it before, and it just kind of happened and whatever. But we live in a wicked world, been wicked is getting wickeder. So keep that in mind. I just had to throw this claim out because I have a male audience, and we know what we do around this age. So just throwing it out there because women be plotting too. But that's enough of my rant today. We have a great episode today that I'm really excited about. He's a musician, he's a great artist, he pops out good visuals. He's going to talk about him leaving a band that he was in to become solo. And we're going to ask him quite a few questions about just a lot of different things and how it all correlates. So let me go ahead and introduce him. My
What's up?
God,
Hey,
what
Easy.
is going
How are
on?
you? What's up?
I'm
I
good.
don't
How are
like
you?
I don't like liars either. I was just listening to your monologue there. I'm really big into the non-liar thing.
Good, 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 good. Because we're going to talk a lot about that today, too. Because, like I said briefly, a lot of times we lie to ourselves and we don't
Right.
even realize it. And I think it's just catastrophic. I mean, me leaving out of college or even in college, I was telling myself I wanted to be a lawyer. I never wanted to be a lawyer. I just was told
Right.
it would be good. And it was just like, whatever. So, obviously, my visual people on YouTube, make sure y'all like, rate, and subscribe. Can't see you, but I need you to tell them, my audio people, what's your name, where you're from, and then where do you live now?
I my name is Eric Knight. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, 305, and now I'm based in Los Angeles, California.
Okay, now tell the people what it is that you do.
I'm a musician, singer songwriter. Just released my first new single in a very, very long time. I'm kind of circling around back to where I kind of not started, but back to being a solo artist. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey to get to this point uh, that I'm in now. So I'm very excited.
Okay, good. So you shared that you just dropped a new single, which I've done research on, Out of This World. Can you
Yeah.
tell the people the personal journey that inspired this song? Like, how did it come about?
Yeah, well, this song came about, we were kind of knee deep in the pandemic, as everybody has experienced. It's been, it's like, it's funny now how we kind of, when we talk and have conversations with people, it's like, we talk about pre pandemic or post pandemic. And
Right.
so this was like during the pandemic as it was happening. And, I'm, um, I'm a very solitary person by nature, almost nomadic in a lot of ways. And, I love, you know, having my alone time, because I'm very focused. I have a lot of things going on just, with music and with other projects that I'm working on. And but it's like everything, too much of a good thing can be bad. And we were so isolated during the pandemic, and a lot of my family and friends are pretty much spread around the country and around the world. So, I mean, I have people here that obviously are, good friendships and everything like that. But um, what was happening was, I my grandmother passed away, which I was very close with, and that was a really big blow to me, and was really having a hard time struggling trying to deal with that. And so this idea kind of popped up for this song. And the inspiration, I'm really big into science fiction and Stranger Things and Close Encounters and all those types of shows and stuff, ET and everything like that. And so, the premise came about, well, what if I were to be taken, like abducted by aliens? I know it sounds crazy, but to see what was on the other side, to see if maybe that was better than the life that I'm having here now, which was just very solitary and lonely and isolated. And and I kind of suffer from depression and stuff like that. So that's a big thing that is not good for people that have that, is to be isolated. And so that was where the premise of the song, the impetus and the origin of that song came about. And then it just kind of, I thought it would be a great way to shed light on the subject about people that are struggling in silence, that are not able to, for whatever reason, whether they're embarrassed, whether they feel like they're going to be ridiculed, they're going to be made fun of. And so this song is for those people to, I hope, through the message, will start coming out and being able to express themselves and open up to somebody. Because the bad part of it is like keeping it all bottled up and just not being able to express it. That could lead to, obviously, as worse things that can happen. So that's kind of how the idea and the premise of the song came about. So I kind of used the whole storyline of the abduction and aliens and wanting to be abducted to try to see about going somewhere else and see if that was better. So that's kind of how that whole idea started.
Okay, good stuff. So we're gonna get more into the song actually in a minute, but I have a question based on something you just said, and it really goes along with this weekend, and of course it being Mental Health Awareness Month. So, do you believe that men lie to themselves about the severity of their mental health?
Absolutely 100%. And that's kind of the reason why it was hard for me because I'm a very private person by nature. So this was very hard for me to kind of want to come out and talk about, because it is kind of that stigma that men have about not being able to, express themselves, and they're going to feel like they're less than. And, you know, I'm not doing anything new about mental health awareness. I mean, this is something that's been coming to the forefront in previous years, and so it's out there. But there is a lot of people that are struggling, and a lot of them are men that are struggling in silence and not being able to express themselves because they fear like their bros are going to say, "Oh man, you're crazy," and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like and I don't want to equate the two, but it's similar in nature. It's like the whole Me Too movement that was happening and that's been going on. A lot of women that have been abused are afraid to come out and speak, and it's still happening to this day. I feel like it's women are more empowered now and that are coming out, which is really great. And it's such a wonderful thing that this has happened in the last few years. But I think that this needs to happen now with the stigma, just with people, with men, women in general. I know your audience is predominantly men. But that I think is a big thing, that I'm hoping that, I can help with somebody listening to the message in the song or seeing something that I'm doing that would have them come out and try to share their story, even if it's with a stranger. I mean, I think the worst part of it about not speaking out is just keeping it bottled up inside. And I think once you start to share and open up, it's almost like the pressure cooker starts kind of like deflating, and you can start letting that out, and you start feeling better about yourself. And so that's how I feel my journey has gone so far with this announcement and with the song and everything. And I can't tell you, Izzy, how many people have come to me and shared their stories of what they're struggling with or what their children are struggling with, and the problems and things that they're dealing with. So it's been an eye opener. So I'm hoping that by talking here, man to man here, like you and I are talking, that more people will come out and start being more comfortable with sharing their story.
Definitely. And in the world we live in now, people are getting more open to doing that. Still not
Absolutely.
all the way there, but we definitely are getting more open with discussing mental health and mental illness. And I went through this and I did this. So it's good to see different mediums and different types of people doing different things, whether it's podcasts, whether it's songs, whether it's movies, short films that center around it, because it shows that, I was actually a part of what was it? A screening of a movie a little while ago, and the movie centered around a man who stopped playing football, and I think he was based out of Chicago, and it was called Black Boys Don't Talk. And he actually, typical from an urban community, and he was upset about his father passing away, and then he didn't couldn't play football anymore, and then he ultimately committed suicide.
Wow.
And based on his life and how he was, no one saw that coming. And that's, I think, a lot of the times with men, because a lot of them are to the point where, and even one of my close friends committed suicide in 2021, August 2021, and no one saw it coming. And I think a lot of times men, we bottle it up and we use different mediums, whether it's sex, whether it's drugs, whether
Right.
it's fighting, because men, the bar fights go crazy,
Yeah.
and just any other medium that isn't healthy versus ones like this that help. So it's good that you use music and the gift that you were given to express yourself in this way. So kudos to you for that. Before we get any further, um, just throwing it
Thank
out
you.
there.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you so much. Yeah.
so now I have a few words I want you to give your opinion on. There's no right or wrong answer. I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind when you hear it. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. The first word is escapism.
Um, God, it's tough now. You're putting me on the spot. It's voyeurism.
Okay, lying. Did you hear me?
I didn't hear the last one. I think we got the connection was kind of spotty there. Say it again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second one.
Lying.
Lying, anger.
Okay. And then self-deception.
Um, self-deception, awareness.
Okay. All right, so the definitions are as follows: escapism, the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. Lying of a person or animal, being or assume a horizontal or resting position or support surface. And then the other one is lying, as in to tell a lie, falsehood, or untrue. Then self deception is a process of denying or rationalizing away the relevance, significance, or importance of opposing evidence and logical arguments. All right, good stuff. Okay, now let's get into let's move to the next segment, which is what does this have to do with mental health? All right, so in this section, we correlate the topic to mental health. All right, now, how do you think music can serve as a tool for coping with isolation and depression?
Well, music for me, I mean, and I think for everybody, is a healing vehicle. I think that for me, getting into music, over politics, religion, anything that you can kind of add to that mix. I don't think there's anything more powerful than music. It's the one thing that brings people together from whatever political background you are, from whatever religious, affiliation that you may have. It's the one thing that puts people together and that can heal. And so for me, it's been a healing journey for myself, being a lover of music like millions of people out there, but being able to create it and share it like a song like this with Out of This World. Um, to me, it's a great responsibility too, to be able to put messages out there that are positive and, trying to help people. So that's kind of my mission.
Okay. And what would be your advice to someone who wants to put out a project, we'll say a song, and they want to use it as a means to express themselves, but they are just afraid to, for whatever reason?
I would say you just have to do it. You have to just put one foot in front of the other, and you've just got to throw caution into the wind, and and just take one step at a time and just do it, and just let that fear go. If not the saddest thing, I mean, I forget the saying what it is, but there's a saying, I'm obviously paraphrasing it, but if you take the chance and you fail, you can try again. But if you don't take the chance and you never did it at all, you never know what might have been. So I'm obviously completely butchering that quote, but you get what I'm saying is you've
Yeah.
got to try and you've got to fail. I mean, you have failed, I'm sure, with several of your projects and things that you've done in your life. I have failed. And to me, I love to fail almost with the things that I've been involved with and doing, because I know that that's getting me closer to that, winning combination. So I would urge everybody to just take a chance on themselves and bet on themselves.
Okay. We love to see it. All right. So now, how does it align with mental health? I have a few different sources. So the first way is self-awareness and reflection. Developing self-awareness through regular self-reflection is critical. This involves recognizing instances where self-deception might be affecting your perceptions and behavior. Reflecting on fears, motivation, and the root of self-deceptive thoughts can lead to more honest self-assessments and improved mental health. All right, and this comes from self-deception, why we do it and how to stop it. The second one is seeking feedback and openness to change. It says engage in open and honest communication with others, seeking feedback and being open and changing one's views based on new information or perspectives are essential. This can help counteract the negative impacts of self deception by broadening one's understanding of different situations and personal limitations. This comes from the same source. So now, when I think of self deception, a lot of times I think about what's what I'm thinking about? Triggering thoughts. Okay. And we all have, especially if you ever struggle with your mental health or any mental illness, you've had thoughts, dark thoughts, or thoughts that just get your mind going in a negative road or down a negative road.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with, do you have triggering thoughts that lead down that rabbit hole? And then how do you deal with them?
I do. It's crazy because I was talking to somebody else about this in another interview that I was doing recently. And I don't know if this happens to you or maybe anybody out there that's listening or watching. For me, it could be anything. I could be in the best mood. I could be happy. Everything is going great. And then there's one kind of thought, and it could be anything, and it just triggers one thing into another. It's a domino effect, and you end up going down this downward spiral. So that's what I think a lot of people deal with when the depression, when we talk about, depression, that's usually what it is, triggering thoughts that take you down this rabbit hole. So what I've learned to do through therapy, being in therapy now for like 7+ years, I've learned to recognize when that's happening and just, you know, before I used to go really deep. I'd spend 2 or 3 days. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to, deal with anything, life in general. And then I would just eventually kind of come out of it. But I felt that that was, it was getting worse and worse for me. So now, just with some of the stuff that I've done in therapy and stuff, I can kind of now associate different things and try to get myself out of that funk quicker than what I was before. So, uh, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, I do have a lot of triggering thoughts that do happen, but now I feel like I can address them better. That doesn't mean that I still will have bad spells where I still go through those things, but I'm just more aware now and I'm more conscious of when it's happening to try to dig myself out of there as quickly as possible.
Okay. Well, that's good. That leads to the next point. It says positive thinking and cognitive reappraisal. So, adapting positive thinking strategies such as cognitive reappraisal helps transform negative thought patterns into more positive ones. This approach involves challenging and changing one's automatic negative thoughts to reduce stress and improve overall mental well being. And this comes from positive thinking, reduce stress by eliminating self talk. And then the next one is professional help, which you mentioned, and therapeutic techniques. Seeking professional help from psychologists or counselor can be beneficial. Beneficial therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy are designed to address and modify disordered thinking and behaviors, helping individuals deal with self-deception in a structured and effective manner. This comes from when is self-deception helpful or dangerous from Psychology Today. So your song obviously is based off of your mental health struggles and out of this world, and talking about being abducted by aliens, and we're going to get into that topic about aliens a little later. But how have your own experiences with mental health shaped the way that you write and produce music just in general?
It definitely shapes in every way. I mean, I think a lot of the stories that I come up with in my music are a direct reflection of the things that I'm going through. So, any writer will probably tell you that. Sometimes I write abstract things and, that happens, but it's more coming from personal experiences and things that I've gone through. And maybe it comes out in a fictional kind of story, but there's a lot of truth in that. So, yeah, it's influenced me a great deal.
And so, also doing research, I know for a fact that you want your music to reach out to those in need. So, what does that mean to you for those in need?
Well, for me, for one, is, being able to speak to, podcasts such as yourself and just trying to get the message out through the music and through talking, and just trying to let people know that it's okay. You touched on something earlier, Izzy, about the whole idea of therapy is one of the things with the self-deception. And I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of guys and men suffer, that they don't feel like they need help. They think that it's, you know, that they're like I don't know what the stigma is and why that is. I mean, that happened to me, so I'm not, I'm trying not to preach to the choir, but um I think a lot of people need to kind of break out of that cycle, particularly men. Women are obviously more open to that. They're more open to everything than we are. We're very kind of like, we're hunters, we bring food, and that kind of mentality. And I think that that needs to open up more. That dialogue needs to open up more with men, that they just need to go get help. I can't tell you how many guys I've spoken to, And, and I tell them, listen, I was just like you. I said, I don't need anything. I'm great. I'm great. I'm great. And then when I went to therapy, I realized that I was not great, and, and went down that rabbit hole of discovery and just, learning about myself and how the things that shaped who I am, just from my parents and all the things that I picked up, bad, good, bad, and indifferent, and how that's affected the person that I've become today. So I really think what you're doing with the show is really amazing, because like I said, I just hope through my music that I can get to more people, to open up themselves up to the possibility of trying to become a better person, not only for the world, but for themselves first and foremost.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good stuff. Now I'm gonna touch on that in the next segment. So let me go to the next segment, which is I challenge that. So this is the segment where we kind of challenge what we're talking about here. Now, let's talk about therapy, because I feel like this is a conversation that I don't know want to say go viral, but this is a conversation I feel as though it needs to be out there. So we know men don't like going to therapy. Of course, we're getting more open to talking about it and being expressive in that regard. I've been to therapy 2 different times. Now, with that, men will say, I know the answer, obviously, but men will say, I don't need a person who doesn't know me to discuss or tell me about me. What would be your rebuttal to that?
I would say that they're completely wrong. God, there's another famous quote from Carl Jung that, self cannot teach self to self. And, only when you go and you open your mind to the thought of being able to open up to a complete stranger that really just has nothing but their best interests, your best interests at heart, when you can finally cross that barrier and get in there with the person and discuss your deepest, darkest secrets, and be able to open up and see the other person, the feedback that they're giving you, it's a game changer. And that's why I was saying it earlier in the earlier segment that you were talking about, that, I've been in therapy now, like I said, for 7 years religiously, 7 years without pretty much missing a week. And it's been a game changer, because I got to realize what was going on. Just number one, my personal relationships, my history of my personal relationships with women, and the things that I was responsible for doing. Not that I was a cheater or anything like that, but just why my relationships failed. That was a big game changer when I started going down that rabbit hole and discovering what were the reasons for that. And that contributed to a lot of my depression, was because, my God, I just can't seem to get uh into a healthy relationship. And I kept finding the same people over and over again, just manifested in a different human being. And so when I started to learn about that, and then I started to learn about all the things that my parents, the toolboxes that they had growing up, and why they were certain ways, and how I picked up those negative things and positive things from each one of my parents. Once you start opening yourself up to that world and you're open to it, it will change your life forever.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Now, again, this is the challenge section. So this is not everything that I believe, but this is to. I'm the type of person where I like people to defend themselves. So we
Yeah.
have a song, mental health song, and we live in a world where artists are sensitive about their work, which as a creative you should be to an extent. Now, we live in a world where sometimes these artists, especially I know in the rap community, we have songs like I know Lil Uzi's "All My Friends Are Dead," "Push Me to the
Mhm.
Edge," that was EXO Tour Life, and we've had I know a song Rihanna had many years ago called "Russian Roulette." Songs that almost idolize suicide. What would be your response to someone who could take some of the lyrics, see the title, and say, "Oh, Eric Knight is idolizing suicide or making suicide look like something glamorous"? What would be your response to that?
Well, I would never do that, so that would be completely off of my, radar. I would not try to push something like that. That's just not in my nature. But yeah, I mean, that's why I told you earlier when we were talking about this earlier, I think that artists have a responsibility. I mean, I've been in the music business for a long time, both in the business side and on the artist side. And I think you have such a huge responsibility, especially with younger kids that are so influenced by hip hop and, and R&B and all the different, genres of music out there. And I really think it's super important that, people are responsible with their messages. And I know a lot of artists, like in the hip hop community, like Little Uzi, and other artists of that ilk, they're talking about really hard subjects. And, I commend them for that. It's just, you have to be very careful because you are influencing a lot of younger people. And I feel that, to me, it's like the whole thing with Stan Lee and the Marvel Comics movies. With great responsibility comes great power and all that stuff. And I feel that, when you're in that position, when you're blessed to be in that position where you are, it's so influential to hundreds, thousands, millions of people. I think it behooves you to really try to make sure that you're trying to do your best to put your best foot forward. I mean, one thing is telling hardcore stories, and that's great, but to try to tell people to, try to commit suicide, or to try to entertain the thought of that suicide is cool. I definitely don't. I'm not from that school.
Yeah, I know. I just, like I said, I'm not. I just, because we do live in an ignorant society at times, and they'll just see the title and just see from the lines, be like, oh, maybe he's talking about this. I know that, but I just, we just live in that world where some of these songs, you'll be like,
Right.
you hear rappers rap over and over again. I want to die. I'm gonna die, and it's like, and
Right.
you constantly. You said earlier, words have power, so you're constantly speaking that thing over yourself. What do you think you're gonna start thinking? You know what I mean? It's just something to.
Exactly. Well, I just feel like, as a young adult or a young kid that's, idolizing these artists, it's such a huge responsibility. And, like I said, and I love hip hop. I mean, I grew up listening to all styles of music. I grew up in a house, thankfully, that, encouraged me to listen to different styles of music. My dad was a musician. My mom could have been a great singer herself, but I grew up listening to all styles of music. And, I do love all those great hip hop acts. And, when they're telling, a very poignant story, one thing is to tell the story, but one thing is, if you're like glorifying it, that to me is where I kind of like it. It's tough because, you are influencing a lot of people. And there have been people that have taken those words literally and have actually followed through with killing themselves or killing somebody else. And so, that's where I kind of draw the line, and that kind of thing where, it comes with great responsibility. I think if you are blessed to have that huge of an audience, you really need to be responsible, I believe, with what you're doing and what you're putting out there.
Okay. All right. And then my last question with that, and then we're going to move on. So, you clearly have great messages you want to push in your music. Do you feel that it's hard to get? Well, I did see you had 37K on YouTube as of today, so I like to see that. But
Oh, thanks.
do you feel that it's hard to be a musician who pushes? How about this? Now we're going to just take musician out of it. Why do you think it's so hard for people who put out good messages to get the views, the looks, and the praise that they deserve compared to those who put out these toxic, you know.
Well, one thing could be that maybe their marketing is bad, that they're not doing good marketing. There could be any number of reasons, but yeah, I mean, you're right. We live in that whole world where, like the 24-hour news cycle, if it bleeds, it leads. You know what I'm saying? That whole idea of where, there's not enough feel good story. You're starting to see that a little bit more in the news where they're trying to put those kind of things in there. But yeah, it just doesn't, it's like the whole idea, it doesn't sell papers when, who buys papers anymore. But you know where I'm getting at. If it's not something that I guess is somewhat controversial, those items tend to do better than if they're not controversial. But I mean, it could be any number of factors of why artists are not having success with, a certain type of song versus another one that might be, more, controversial. It just really depends. But I believe you can. I mean, because look, there's a lot of Christian artists that are out there that are super successful, and all of their messages are positive, and they are super successful. There's a band in my God, I can't remember the name of the band now. They're a Christian band, and they're like a hard rock act in, like, kind of in my world. And they are doing, they're huge. They're huge. And so there is those outliers that are out there that are spreading positive messages, that are having success. And we just need to kind of, indoctrinate that more into society. We keep seeing the news, and it's just depressing, to watch the news on a daily basis, much less, on an hourly basis. And so, yeah, to get back to your point, I think that, why one versus the other, I think it just depends. There's a lot of different factors that go into that.
All right, good stuff. So now that's a great segue because you talked about outliers, which we know again that this podcast is for. And aliens, the term alien is actually, obviously the aliens that are the creatures, but also
Right.
aliens is someone who is foreign or someone who could be seen as like an outlier, an outcast, that kind of thing. What is your views being from Miami? And earlier this year we had the incident with the aliens
Yeah.
supposedly at the mall. Did you know anybody who was there when that happened, or
No, 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 I wasn't, but I did, I do, I am aware of the story. So yeah, we get a lot of that back in Miami, back home. So I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
what is your take on that? Do you think it was a hoax, or do you really believe like it was something there?
You know what? I don't know because I haven't done a lot of investigation into that particular incident. According to a lot of people, I mean, there was one in Las Vegas that happened recently, I think towards the end of last year, and there was actual police officers on that scene, and they said that there was definitely something going on there with aliens, that, somebody had seen it from their house, and multiple people, police officers and other bystanders had seen it. So, I'm from the school of thought that it would be completely ignorant of us if we thought that we're the only people in this universe. I definitely believe that we're not alone, and you know, and so I think that we need to be more accepting of the fact that, that is a possibility. Now that hasn't presented itself in, we haven't seen like this thing like Independence Day where they've come out and the whole world has seen it all at the same time, but there's clearly something going on that we cannot explain, that's been happening. And I think now that the government is starting to become more open and sharing what's going on with things a little bit more, we might get a little bit more insight into what's going on. But yeah, I mean, it's, you're right, that alien word has like that double triple meaning, and that's kind of the whole idea behind the idea with the song was, my whole kind of pitch with the song is out of this world, a story about alienation. And alien is done in big, and then the nation is in small, because alienation means being alone, being isolated. Also, it means the aliens, that we talk about, from space. And then, like you said, being an alien, like somebody from another country that's trying to come into our country and all that kind of stuff. So there was multiple meanings behind this whole thing, and why I thought it was a great vehicle to be able to put this message together and put it out there.
So then you talk about putting it together. So let's go to the creative process. So behind your recent cryptic video series and how it ties into the song's message.
Yeah. So these videos that I put out, I put out a series of 3 videos, and the first one was just me sitting in the room where I'm sitting in right now, and it was just my cell phone, and it was just me looking into the screen, and there was basically messages that were playing. I don't know if you saw those videos, but they were, just basically a message saying, something is coming and you don't know what it is, and it's bigger, type of thing, is, I'm kind of paraphrasing it. But it obviously, I knew that it was going to be very concerning for a lot of people. I had to actually tell my family in advance. I kept it real secret. Nobody knew that it was a song that was coming out, but I did have to tell like my family, hey, listen, there's a videos that are coming out. It's going to look like I'm losing my mind, maybe going crazy. Maybe people think I'm going to, kill myself or something. And then it just kept progressing. The second video was me off of one of the mountains here in LA at nighttime, and it was
Mhm.
talking about the universe and saying, the universe is speaking, but are you listening? So they were real cryptic, but they had multiple meanings behind it. And of course, I did get the reaction that I wanted. I had a ton of people that were calling, to check if I was okay, which was really, a beautiful thing. And we had to tell people, yes, I was okay. I had to stay quiet during this whole thing because we knew that this was going to cause a lot of concern and stuff. But once the third video aired, and then when I came out with the official message that the song was officially coming out, there was a
Yeah.
message behind it telling people, this is the reason why I did this. I felt it necessary because people are struggling and are not speaking out like what we're talking about on this show. And that's why I wanted to come on this show so much, was to share and to just, even if one person that's watches this decides, because of our conversation, that they decide to go get help, whether it's they're thinking of killing themselves and they call a suicide hotline, or they decide they're going to go to a therapist and give it a shot, or if they're just going to talk to a stranger on the corner, something that they can do to try to better themselves, uh, to me, I would have already accomplished my mission, and it's already happened a number of times. So
Definitely, definitely. So before we move to the next segment, I gotta ask about fitting in. So obviously you have made it your business to be an outlier. This is for if everyone has, artists, musicians, whoever, they always have like they name their fans or whatever. And of course, I don't know if you directly name them, but this is for the outliers, this is for the outcasts. So obviously, similar to myself, you've accepted being an outlier and outcast, and now you enjoy it. But was there ever a time where you wanted to fit in and you didn't, and then you realized maybe I wasn't meant to?
yeah, I think that every person has that when they're growing up, whether they're in school and the different, segments of school. You had the cool kids, the ones that were the outcasts, the nerds. I've kind of it was weird in my life in school. I kind of fit in the middle. I was definitely an outcast, but I somehow got along with all the groups. So I didn't have that kind of outcast type of thing in that situation. But just later on in life, I did have more of that. And I think it was just due to the fact that I was just a very isolated person to begin with by nature. And so, yeah, I've had those feelings in the past, but then I realized I don't need to kind of fit into any mold or any, circle or any square, shape or anything like that. I just feel like, I embrace it now, but I'm just more aware of my surroundings, of what I'm doing, and when I'm going down those rabbit holes that we talked about earlier, and just know how to dig myself out of it. But yeah, I mean, I do embrace it more so now. And that's why I dedicated the song to all the outcasts and all the loners, the people that have been bullied. I mean, all of those people, because I've been there. I've been the one that was bullied. I've been the one that was the outcast. I was a loner, and I still, am to a certain degree. um but yeah, it's something that I have thought of in the past, but you know I embrace it now. I love the fact that this is who I am, and just accept it.
Okay, good stuff. All right, now let's move into the next segment, which is the weekly sabbatical. With that, I want to speak on something real quick before I ask my next question. So, picking back off everything you said, because with me, I was never physically bullied from the standpoint of, hit, beat up, or thrown in the locker. Was too big, but or just pick. I was, if anything, I might have been picked at verbally, but still, I could go back and forth. Like we can do that, but it was just got to the point where it was just, bothersome and just a little excessive. And also, it was kind of a point where I might not have been kind of like you said, we kind of got along with everybody, but you still really didn't fit in with any group, any
Right.
crew. And then it was just kind of like, and I don't know if it was the case for those. For me, you'll hear about events at school, like, oh, these people did this weekend. I ain't know nothing about it. Or,
Right.
you're just talking about it. I'm a firm believer for me that I believe God allowed that for me because He wanted me to build my own table. And I
Mm.
think with certain similar to you with the song, I believe is you created kind of your own lane. And it's like even with me, like even now who I am now, which started in high school, because I didn't really hang with people like that in my high school. I more so hung out with people around the city of St. Louis, and then I got to college, and it kind of just that what's the word I'm looking for? That personality, I guess, followed. And it's even me now, like people are, oh, everybody. Every time you go somewhere, you see somebody, I'm like that person because I was put in a position to build my own. Like, okay, y'all won't invite me. Okay, I'll invite myself, or I'll make friends over here and I'll do it like that because I was the person who's kind of like, oh, no, you can't sit with us, which is a good thing because, like I said, I made my own table and now people come sit with me. So I think
Right.
that is good for people Outliers, I feel like, and outcasts have that power. They, to me, have that supernatural gift to do that. And if you're watching this, which I know you will be, but if you're watching this, just know if you've been the outcast, you are the one meant to build the table. So if you don't fit in at the table, the rejection may creep in for a little bit, but you have to kind of take it to the chin and realize that you're called for more. So keep that in mind. Um, all right. So my next question to you. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood. Like, you talked about growing up in a house of musicians. You talked about being bullied a little bit, but really, how did you get to where you are now? Like, how was schooling for you? Were you always smart? Were you into music as a child? Friends? What? Tell us more about that. Whatever you feel like to share.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I grew up in that house of music, thank God, and listening to all styles of music, which was very influential for me. And I just had a love for music since I was probably 4 or 5 years old because, again, my father playing guitar in bands and, and going as a child listening to the music, I guess that somehow just stayed with me. And then I just started learning. I'm not formally trained. I learned everything by ear, and I play multiple instruments. And so, I just kind of had that passion and love for it, and I just kept persevering through it. And I guess through just sheer will, I just willed myself into wanting to pursue this my entire life. This has been a lifelong goal for me. And so, it's been something that, I've been working on. And then in terms of, my childhood, you know, um, it was pretty good. I mean, I didn't have, there wasn't anything like traumatic or anything that's happened to me in my life. I've been very fortunate, had great parents. For the most part, they were divorced at an early age. So one of the things that I didn't discover was I thought I was okay when they divorced, but later on when I was in therapy, I found out I wasn't kind of okay. There was kind of some things that I dug up there that I wasn't aware of. But child of divorce, my mother remarried and then had another child, my brother, later on. So I was basically an only child for a long time. And then my brother came along. But yeah, I mean, I had a pretty, for the most part, normal childhood, again, growing up in Miami, influencing by all the styles of music, hip hop and R&B and rock and jazz and everything. That's, Miami's a melting pot. We have so many people coming from Haiti, from Brazil, from Honduras, Central America, South America. It's just such a melting pot. It's kind of like the same here in Los Angeles. It's very similar in nature in a lot of ways. So that was my upbringing, and it's just been music, 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 music the whole way. So that's my life.
Good. This actually to my next question. So, are there any particular artists or songs that influence your approach to music and mental health? Because we all got some inspiration. And a lot of times I've learned with a lot of, especially musicians that I keep up with, you'll hear their inspiration. It'd be like, you're a hardcore rapper. You're inspired by Michael Jackson. Like, it's so crazy how inspiration works. Even with my podcast, the way it is, it's inspired by some podcasters or YouTubers and radio people you would never even think. So, is there any influences or artists that really have inspired you?
There's so many. I mean, like I told you, I grew up in that house full of music. I mean, I grew up listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, which is a huge influence on me. I grew up listening to, Jimi Hendrix. I grew up listening to the Beatles. I grew up listening to bands like Kiss. The bug hit me with the rock and hard rock thing after seeing Kiss. They looked like superheroes. You see these guys spitting blood and throwing flames, fire, spitting fire and stuff. And that was very a big inflection point for me and very influential. But yeah, Michael Jackson. I mean, I love Michael Jackson. I mean, I grew up listening to all of that stuff. Hip hop, Tribe Called Quest. I mean, I've listened to everything that you can think of, and I still listen to a lot of the stuff that's out there on the radio today because it's very influential for me. And in terms of my mental health, all of those bands have influenced me. And, you know, music has that power and that gift to put you when you're sad and you want to be sad. Music can take you down that road and you can go down that sad road. But if you want to be uplifted and you want to be inspired, You can listen to, something that Hans Zimmer composed for one of these movies like Inception or Batman, and just, you could just be like, my God, this is so amazing. And the other thing that the gift of music that it does, certain songs, as you know, can put you in a certain place and time. And every time you hear that song, I mean, there's some songs that I can't even hear because it's too hard for me to hear, because it brings me back to a time of my life that was very, whether it was very sad or I went through a breakup. And that's the power of music. That's why I love what I do, because to me, it's the most powerful medium on the face of the planet.
It is. Music is very powerful, and I think it's funny because it'll be we are some weird people because we will go knowing we feel sad, go play a song that makes us feel even sadder and just bawl.
Yeah.
It's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
but but even in a situation like that, they say music brings everybody together. Even just that, everybody, no matter what race, no matter what language you speak, age, millennial, boomer, whatever, we all do that or have done
Yeah.
that, and that is so crazy to me. Um, okay, a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It says, "To be great is to be misunderstood." So I'm gonna say what I think that means, and then I'm gonna let you go. So to be great, to be misunderstood. I think it is again, like I said earlier, which I didn't even plan on saying that, but I'm definitely gonna quote that because that's great. To be a outcast is kind of like a superpower because it really is like, wow, you know, you think differently than everybody else. And some people, some of us are on the spectrum. Some we know, and some we don't know. I know we've seen cases of what's her name. She's a singer now, Money Long. She just came out
Mhm.
talking about she was diagnosed with autism. That's the twin lady that sing the song "Twin." Where have you been?
Yeah.
Her. She was diagnosed with that and talks about it makes sense about her childhood. And so many people, probably a lot of us, are on the spectrum and don't know it. But even with that, even if you aren't, you just still are an outcast, an outlier, person who doesn't move like everybody else. And a lot of times we're forced to conform. But I do believe now we live in a society where people, it's like it's good to be the weirdo. That's a trend now. So now people who were never the weirdos are now trying to lean into that, and it's like this isn't really you, but the people who are that, that person, that entity, is like, it's your time. It's your time to shine. So,
Yeah.
what does that quote mean to you?
What it means to me is that you got to take risk, and and like what I told you earlier, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to fail. And the to me, the greatest artists that have ever been have been ones that have been misunderstood. Just like the quote, you think about Michael Jackson. Talk about one of the most misunderstood human beings on the face of the planet. This man never had a childhood of his own, and and all of these allegations and things that came about because he didn't have a childhood. And obviously somebody on the surface seeing that from the outside looking in might say, wow, that's really strange. But when you really dig deeper and start peeling those onions and those layers from those onions, you realize this man had no childhood. This man was, basically taken away and has been working ever since he was, God only knows. And so to me, that is part of it. I think you have to take risk. You're going to make mistakes. I think you cannot be all things to all people. You need to be yourself, and that means good, bad, or indifferent. Whatever it is that you do, you've got to own it. And like you said, the weirdos, it's like a trendy thing now, but people can see through that authenticity if they're really real about it. You can kind of see it and feel it and know it, that that's who they are. And you can really see the fake ones, and kind of do that. So that's kind of how I look at it.
All right, good stuff. So as we wind it down, so I've researched some ways to overcome self-deception, and it says feeling like an outcast, but I'm encouraging the feeling of an outcast, but it's just saying self-deception, lying to yourself. Because some of y'all are in denial about being an outcast, and that's okay. Some of y'all are in denial about, fitting in with certain groups, or trying to, do certain things, or even in certain jobs that you're not supposed to be at. You prayed to God to be an actor, and you're working at a corporate job where you're going up the ladder and you're celebrating those promotions, but you don't want to be there. Shout out to Simply Adriana. I used to go to college where she talked about how she told her story on YouTube actually recently. And she talked about how she had said, she was at a job, she loved it, but she was like, I want to be an actress and I'm here. And it's like, Lord, give me a way out. And although they loved her at the job, she got laid off. She got laid off, and she talked about how she went to go find when she got laid off. She applied for unemployment. The next day, she heard nothing back. They ended up giving her unemployment for a year because she said her prayer to God was that He allow her to have a source of income so that she could follow her dreams. So now she has unemployment for a year that they gave to her while applying for plays and different other TV shows, and how she just got booked for, I think, a play or a TV show or something. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to get out of that mindset of comfort. We have to get out that comfort mindset. And with being an outcast, that title, you can't be comfortable. I don't believe. I don't.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You have to take chances. You have to take risks. That's about the whole idea, like what you said with the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, that you just got to take. You got to bet on yourself. If you're gonna really try to do something for yourself, the worst thing you can do is say, "I'm gonna do this," and do. I mean, I talk to people all the time. "Oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that," and they don't do it, and it's like, my God, you're just not realizing your full potential. I believe everybody has a gift. Everybody has a purpose in this life, and you may have to go through 20 different things until you realize what is your calling. But once you find that, you go for it and you do it. The sad part is the people that are not taking the risk and are just living their lives just from one day to the next, one day to the next, Netflix and chill, and not doing anything with their life. That to me is the saddest thing of all.
I agree. So now, a few ways to overcome this. So the first one is mindfulness and habit change. It said recognize the habits that lead to self-deception, such as justifying poor behavior or blaming others for personal issues. Mindfulness can help you identify and change these habits, focusing on new and positive behaviors. This comes from the carousel. How did you overcome self-deception? And then embracing discomfort and responsibility. Often self-deception stems from avoiding uncomfortable truths about ourselves. Accepting personal responsibility and facing the truth directly can be powerful. And overcoming self deception, this may involve challenging personal narratives and assumptions that you have about yourselves and others. This comes from therapy in a nutshell and skill in self deception. So, now as we wind off or wind down today, can you tell us about any upcoming projects that or initiatives that continue to focus on mental health awareness?
Well, I'm actually in the process. I don't have an announcement just yet, but I am trying to align myself with an organization, a nonprofit, for mental health awareness, and trying to do that. There's a CD, which I know who buys CDs anymore, but there's a special edition CD that I'm putting out, which is going to have remixes of Out of This World, and it's gonna be really cool. It's going to be actually, I've never even seen this done actually, or maybe it has been and I never knew, but what I'm trying to do, because one of the things that a lot of people tell me is like, how does the inspiration for music come? I mean, that's another subject for another conversation. But how does inspiration strike somebody? How do you have that gift of being able to sing a melody in your head, and all of a sudden it turns, you write words and it turns into this fully blown song? So what I'm doing with this particular CD that I'm releasing, it's a limited edition thing that I'm going to do. It's going to have the whole idea of inspiration, and it's literally going to have the recordings of from the beginning of how I started with like me yelling, like kind of singing into my iPhone, the melody of the song, and then how it developed and how it went from going from the iPhone, going to me playing on guitar, going to the demo stage of the song being built, and then going all the way to the final stage of the song that you hear now, which is the final fully produced master. And there's an interview that's going to be a part of that as well too, where I'm talking about things with mental health. But what my plan is when I put this out, it's going to be something that I'm going to sign and everything. It'll be like maybe 300 to 500 copies. But what we're going to do is all the proceeds are going to go to that mental health organization once I align myself with that. So
All right. And then my final question. So, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling in silence and feeling out of place in the world?
I would say that you're not alone. I'm one of those people. Izzy's another one of those people. There's a community out there of people. It's just a matter of finding your tribe. And, like I said, maybe you have to go and just talk to a stranger on the street. Tell them I need to, or maybe go to a church and go inside and just pray to God and just ask for, some sort of guidance. Talk to a minister, a priest, anything, whatever your religious denomination is. There is help out there. I would just urge people to go out and do it, and just, even if they feel self-conscious about it, even if they feel embarrassed, if they feel, just talking to anybody is better than doing nothing. And that will start the whole taking one baby step into the next baby step, and going from there.
All right, good stuff. All right, y'all. So let's end up with the question or challenge for the week. In light of today's discussion on self-deception and mental health, how do you recognize patterns of self-deception in your own life? And what steps are you willing to take to address them? I ran out of character, so that's why it looks like that. But you heard it here. So, all right. So thank you so much for coming through today. This has been a great episode. And that's all I got for y'all. Tune in next week. We have another great episode. So, as always, P.S.A. signing out. Remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are. Make your mind up. Don't let it make you. And remember, I love us for real.